Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show on Hamilton Radio. Guys, everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass, guys, because 31 years ago, I was a dumbass, but through the grace of God, 31 years later, I can honestly say now I'm a smartass. Yes, the word ass is in the Bible. It means donkey, and that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this, guys. We've all had the toughest 3 years of our lives all over the world, and unfortunately, some have not made it, including friends and family members of mine. I want everyone out there to know who's struggling that there's always someone listening. I'm a nutritional health coach and I'm a recovery coach, and all my services to you are free. So please, please reach out if you need to. My book, guys, can help save lives. Okay, so if you truly, truly, truly cannot afford my book, please reach out to me about that as well. You can go to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, BAM, it's everywhere. Okay? So please know that there is help out there. Please go to my YouTube channel, the Geri Petito Show YouTube channel. Subscribe. A lot of great things are happening. And my website, guys, www.geripetito.com. Guys, you know, I always bring it, right? Well, I'm really, really bringing it today. I have an incredible young man. Let me introduce him to you, and then we're going to talk about all this cool stuff that's going on and that he's a part of. He owns a piece of my heart. Jason Abrams, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm always comfortable with you, so I feel like I'm in your living room and we're just having a chat with some coffee, and so I'm just... You know, we just probably have millions of other folks around the world joining us this particular occasion, but I'm doing well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm ready.
All right. So why don't you start? Tell everyone a little bit about let's start from here, and then we'll go backwards a little bit, okay? So tell
Yes.
everyone a little bit about what's happening with you and your career right now.
So post-pandemic, you know, I come from the entertainment industry, and as the folks that are in the entertainment industry know, and many of you out there, that our world was predominantly virtual for 2 years. The industry was basically closed. Everyone was working from home and on Zooms and Skypes and FaceTimes. And as the world opened up, quite fortunate, but the interest in working with me has grown increasingly, and I'm so appreciative of that. You know, I tried to do things for others during the pandemic, and, you know, I guess they say you reap what you sow.
Yes.
You know, I feel very blessed right now with the clients who I consider family to actually be able to do what I'm doing.
So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about that. You have some really heavy hitters.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of your cool clients.
My clients are very cool. I'm very proud of them and proud to be associated. I have had experience, just to back up a little bit, where I've worked with others or collaborated on other, you know, with other companies where I was just handed a roster and said, you need to represent this many artists, or this is your client, and, while I feel that I'm good at what I do, I don't, if I'm not inspired, I can't give my all, and so I choose to represent the folks that I do. That's my little disclaimer. When I meet somebody, it could be, it could have been the Pope, and if I'm not inspired at that moment, or I don't feel that I could be of a benefit, then that doesn't make me a good representative. And these folks, now that I'm going to share, truly inspire me every day. They inspired me to come from a lot of angst and a lot of emotion during the pandemic, like a lot of you, most of you. But I feel I had these folks in my life, and I went through it with them, as I did with my mom, which we'll share later.
Yeah.
And so one of them, the one who's remained in my life the longest thus far, is singer and songwriter, recording artist Samantha Cole. Many of you will know her from the international global hit Love Me, Love Me, from the reggae superstar Shaggy. Samantha was featured, in that recording, but Samantha's much more than, that major hit. She was one of the first artists signed to Universal Records when Doug Morris and Daniel Glass founded the company with Universal. And she was signed and released her first, full-length record at 19 years old, and between 17 and 19. And she had David Foster producing her, Richard Marx, Nile Rodgers, just to name a few, Rhett Lawrence. These are mega stars of that era. If you could choose a team, they were like, the ultimate goal to have. And Samantha has worked very hard to remain relevant. She took a hiatus to have children when she married over 10 years ago. And during that time, she launched a voice coaching company, which has been quite impressive to me, because she's been able to basically be the bucket list for folks of all ages. It's quite impressive, because I think sometimes I'll go there and they'll be just children, or teenagers with these goals that want to sing and have these opportunities. But there's been some senior citizens. It's just quite impressive, what I've seen, her do, and quite a service. And now we're back to doing some soft releases just to keep her Spotify bubbling, which is something I might get into later. But, we have been releasing songs throughout the pandemic, and she's had quite a bit of success in the international dance market. We have a song that has over 1 million streams out of Germany.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you so much. I feel a part of that. And that was during the pandemic. It was called Weekend Love. It is called Weekend Love. And that song, check it out. It's really a great, EDM European type of song. It'll really move you, especially when the weekend's coming up, and you need that. And then, I have had so many opportunities. I don't think we have enough time in this segment, but I've had the experience of traveling the world with the hip hop legend, Smooth B of Nice and Smooth. Yeah, Nice and Smooth, Hip Hop Junkies. Very proud of that. That was a kind of music. I grew up in a suburban, rural area, and Nice and Smooth, my high school years were filled with my friends, you know, raising the roof to those songs like Sometimes I Rhyme Slow, Sometimes I Rhyme Quick, Hip Hop Junkies, Cake and Eat It Too. So many songs, Dwick with Gangstar, legends. And I got to go to Japan with them. You know, I've done so much with Smooth. He's like a big brother to me. And his children call me Unky.
I love that. That's what my
Yeah.
my brother is, an unk. I love that.
I love being an Unky
Yeah.
or an uncle. Yeah, so I have nieces and nephews out of these relationships as well, and they're very talented. I hope one day I'll get to represent some of these children. Some of them aren't children anymore. They're probably going to be mad at me, but yeah, they all know more than we do now. But I'm very proud of that relationship, and I worked with Roberta Flack for many years.
That is too
Moment
cool.
of silence, right?
Oh my goodness. I need your autograph, man.
That's one I'm quite proud of. Roberta opened up so many doors for me, and I have so many stories. You know, we're just so close, and you know, she's had some health concerns in the past couple of years, but she's just, you know, still full of love for me, and I'm full of love for her. And whenever we can connect, you know, it means so much to me just to even be in the same room with her to this day.
I'd
I'm not
love
just
even just a
starstruck.
hello. Just a hello.
Right. Well, you know, and I got to do much more than that with her. You know,
Yes.
I've slept in the Dakota, which, you know, she was famously a neighbor of Yoko Ono and John Lennon. And, you know, Maury Povich, Lauren Bacall, you know, a number of luminaries lived or live in that building. And, you know, so I got to experience that, and probably the ghosts of the Dakota too. I was always petrified of that building, but yeah, that was something I'm very lucky, you know, to have had part of my life, to have rolled with Roberta, as I say.
Wow.
And working with Roberta led to me also at first doing the public relations for Bernard Wright, her godson. He passed recently in a tragic way, but, you know, Nard, just a musical genius. He'd been sampled so much, you know, by the hip hop community. As a matter of fact, I'd come on working with him just after the success of LL Cool J's song Loungin', Who Do You Know? Who Do You Love? I'm sorry. Who Do You Love was Nard's song. So, you know, that made me feel good to be a part of that, because I grew up, you know, on that original song, and then to then represent the legend, as you will, of, you know, the sample, you know, which was also a major hit. Yeah. And all of that was when I was very young. You know, I was about 18 years old when I started rolling with Roberta. Yeah, I was just basically brought in right away doing, you know, whatever I could do. We called it public relations. You know,
Okay.
I was the publicist of the team. And, you know, I have fond memories of that time. And from there on, you know, the folks that I worked with back then are still in my life, and that's why I'm bringing them up in the current sense.
I love
didn't-
that, but see, that's what I love.
I didn't stray away from your question, because
No,
I'll go back
but
to
wait, don't stop. This is the stuff I love hearing, and so does everyone out there. I mean, you just named legend after legend after legend. Please don't stop.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
You opened Pandora's box. First of all, I want to get this off of my lap. You know, I was so excited. This is my first post-pandemic interview, and
Yay.
got all these new clients and everything. So I tried to be sophisticated, and I ordered a professional ring light system, you know, the whole setup here, and it had about 1,000 pieces, and we're doing this old school. So I had to get that off my lap.
You're so funny. That's fine.
Things I do for you all. But anyway, back to the clients.
Yes.
So, speaking of another legend, about a little over 10 years ago, I traveled to New York because I'd been caregiving for my father actually at the time in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And, but no, actually, this was a little bit prior to that. I apologize. That I was residing in West Hartford, Connecticut, because it was in between my parents and in between the city, and it was close to the airports. You know, it was just very practical for me at the time.
Okay.
And during this torrential rainstorm, I thought it would be a great idea to run to the station and go to the city to see Ms. Dionne Warwick.
Oh, come on.
Ms. Warwick, Dionne, you know, was a friend prior to that, an acquaintance, and you know, I believe I texted her son David, and he said, you know, you don't have to come, Jason. This weather's horrible. You know, just be safe. And there I was, you know, BB Kings, and I'm watching the show, you know, and obviously, you know, you're watching Dionne Warwick, you're going to be mesmerized, whether you've known her for 100 years or not. That
Right.
she's settled. I'm just saying that, you know, she leaves you breathless, you know,
Yes.
to this day. And, you know, if you've got any kind of an ear, if you're tone deaf, you know, I don't know what to say, but Dionne Warwick is Dionne Warwick.
Even
And,
if I have to say something, even if someone
Yes.
is tone deaf, I don't believe, I think she can break that barrier. If
I
anyone
believe so.
can break that barrier, it's her.
I believe so. So, you know, there I was watching Ms. Dionne Warwick in New York City in Times Square, and then all of a sudden I see her ensemble leaving the stage, you know, one by one, and Dionne tiptoeing off the stage, and there's a little girl coming on stage, about maybe 17 at the time, and beautiful girl, those Warwick eyes. and facial features, and her mom, you know, if you ever come across her, it's very beautiful. She was a model, a print model, and you know, she'd done some work in Hollywood as well. Just a beautiful family inside and out. And but before I knew that, I saw this girl walk on stage and sit down and sing a song called "Stay" by Rihanna, which I was, you know, I get advances of music, so I was aware of the song. At the time, it hadn't, I don't believe it was a single or a video or anything at that time, but I was aware of it. But when this young lady, Cheyenne Elliott,
Here we go.
yes, came on stage with her own accompanist and ushered her Grammys ensemble off the stage, and even her Grammy to watch side stage, she stole everyone's hearts, and she stole mine. She stole everyone's ears, everyone's attention. I could hear, you know, they say, you know, you can hear a pin drop. That's that saying. I could hear a pin drop. You know, you could hear the mice stirring. Probably rats in Times Square. But anyway, yeah, and I said I have to meet this young lady. So I couldn't wait. You know, it was a little distracting actually, because I was sitting there watching the rest of the Dionne Warwick show and excited about going backstage to say hello, and then not so excited about traveling back, you know, to New England later in that storm. But just you know, getting to enjoy those moments, you know, which have been many in my life, and those moments are something I'm grateful for. I call them backstage moments. I have so many memories, but you know, again, not to stray away from the topic, and not to stray away from somebody so deserving, Cheyenne. I met her mom. You know, I went backstage, and I had spoke to David backstage, and I just promised him, you know, I said, I want to work with Cheyenne, your daughter. I told Dionne, you know, I want to work with Cheyenne, I promise you I won't drop the ball, you know, and they sort of put that ball in my court, you know, and her mom contacted me a few days later about some photos that I'd taken and posted on Facebook and on various platforms from the show. And, you know, she'd asked if I could send them to her and if she could share them.
Beautiful.
And we hit it off almost immediately. Lisa now to me is like a sister or auntie, second mother. You know, she's very maternal, but she's all of those things. You know, sometimes Cheyenne will go to bed if we're in a certain city. She'll go up to the hotel room and she'll just want some ice cream, and then we go off and, you know, tear up the town, whether it's the Strip in Vegas or, you know, the local nightclub or whatever, you know, a late night snack in the hotel. You know, that's where you'll find Lisa and I, who are now partnering and representing Cheyenne. And so I'm proud to share with you that she's a client of mine. If you can all check her out, you know, it would be, I'd be grateful, but I think she deserves it. She's certainly cut from that cloth.
Whitney
Warwick,
Houston's cousin,
Elliot
right?
Houston,
Yeah.
Whitney's little cousin, yes.
Yeah.
And I might have shared some photographs, but if you go to her Facebook and, you know, or Google search her, you might find a few photos of Whitney holding her as a child and even as a baby. Just, you know, that's remarkable in itself. You know, I almost feel like, aside from the bloodline, she was anointed from day one, you know.
Isn't that amazing? Yes, you're right about that. The way you just said that was perfect, because she was anointed from day one. Absolutely.
She was. And that's been a double-edged sword. Let me set that record straight.
Yes.
You know, folks are not always kind today, and, you know, some folks want to, you know, refer to entitlement or things you and I have talked about that really pissed you off.
Yes.
I recall during our early conversations, and, you know, they really are necessary. But now that we look in comments about anyone who's a high profile figure, there'll probably be comments about little me in this interview, you know, oh, he's this or that, or he talks, you know, whatever. Everybody's got something to say. But at that time, she was on The Four, for example, which was a television program on Fox, and it was produced by Diddy, and, you know, featured an all-star panel. And Cheyenne just wows her. I mean, she stole that show, and they produced her well. You know, her performances were framed for her talent and her beauty. You know, if you YouTube them, you're going to ask why she's not in Madison Square Garden tomorrow.
She will be. She will be.
She will be tomorrow, right? Yes, we'll put that in the universe. She certainly will be. And I don't give up. Her mom and I are very persistent. Lisa Gressett and I are very persistent, and her family is behind us and behind her, of course.
It's amazing.
But, you know, before I segue into the next one, which is sort of an announcement, I want to clarify that again. You know, Cheyenne has really had to work, you know, even with that major television platform. You know, she was, you know, you had Charlie Walk going like this, and Hollywood Reporter saying kind things, and you know, the other panelists calling her the bloodline of an icon, future icon. You know, those are some of the quotes that aren't even opinions. Those were quotes from some of the majors in the industry. But Cheyenne still had to find her own direction, and has really worked hard. I'm very proud of it. You know, you can only do so much in representing somebody. You can't literally be them or be their song, you know, or their voice. And
I want to say something to you about something you just said.
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, an average fan like me, right? Okay, I look at these incredible musicians and singers and artists, right? And they're producers, and I give it to you as well. You know, sometimes people don't understand this, but when they are related to iconic legends.
Yes.
It makes it sometimes a little more difficult.
Mhm.
And that's what people don't understand. You know, people make comments like, oh, yeah, well, look who the mother was. Look who no. That makes them have to work even harder because that's who they're representing. And it's not always so easy. And I understand
No,
that.
just ask the Smith children, you know.
There you go. There you go.
Willow, you know, those children have gone through such scrutiny, and, you know, they have their degrees of talent, you know, and there's folks, you know, that'll say that the door's open, and maybe perhaps they did open, you know, because of their parents.
Okay, but they still
you can't
deserve
stay
it.
if you don't. Yeah, but you can't sustain that. You
No.
can't stay there and have the staying power that a lot of these successful children have had, or even the interest in Cheyenne. You know, people are really out there rooting for us and waiting for her, you know, with open arms. And that's not because she's Dionne Warwick's granddaughter or Whitney Houston's cousin.
No.
That's because the girl can sing.
The girl can sing. And
what's that they used to say, sang? She's a singer.
I love that. Okay, that girl can sing. I love that.
She can sing, and, you know, she can write now. You know, she always was writing, but she's really writing now. She co-wrote with Eric Pasley recently, who's a country luminary, and he has written with a number of, you know, just a number of songs that mean a lot to you folks out there. And you know, he's a star in his own right, and he tours as Eric Pasley. Eric Zoomed earlier this year with Cheyenne, and before you know it, you know, within a couple of hours, they had a beautiful song, which I'm not going to tell you the name yet because it might be the next single, but you know, I can't wait for you to hear it. It just, when she performs it, if you come out to one of the performances and you just hear it, it's one of those songs that tugs on your heartstrings, again, as they say.
Well,
and,
I want to thank you
know.
about getting an interview for me with her. I mean that from the
Yes.
bottom of my heart, guys. I'm truly
got it.
honored. I'm going to be interviewing Cheyenne, and it's because of this young man right here. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And speaking of coming from, you know, a certain cloth,
Oh, yes.
I'm proud to announce, you know, that I've begun to start representing Navarone, Garibaldi Garcia. Many of you would know him as Garibaldi, and his mother is the legendary actress Priscilla Presley, who is also, to me, iconic as an entrepreneur. You know, as a businessman myself and an entrepreneur, she's somebody who's garnered my respect since I was a child. You know, and you know, Navarone initially was suspect. I don't think he believed me, you know, when we first acquainted, because I knew who his band was. They're called Them Guns.
I love that name, though.
Yes. Do you want to know where it comes from?
I was going to ask you, so please
Okay.
tell us. I love the name.
I'd love to tell you. I'd love to share this. Although, you know, I hope, you know, if he gets an opportunity to interview with you, you know, with you, that I don't take away this answer from
well,
him.
then wait. Maybe, do you not want to? I'm going to be interviewing him as well, guys, and I'm on cloud nine. Do you want to share with them about it? Or
We're going to interview together with Navarone, and I think, you know, we can reiterate it.
Okay, so tell us. Tell this. Yes.
This will give a greater understanding.
Okay.
You know, some people, you know, especially during the pandemic and all of these things happening around the world from there on, how can you have guns in your name and this and that? Well, to explain, just refer to his name, Navarone. There is a film that his mom was a fan of called Guns of Navarone.
Yeah.
The Guns of Navarone. And Navarone was named after that film.
I didn't know that.
And,
Okay.
His name was inspired by that film.
Okay.
And,
Yes.
And then the band was inspired by Guns of Navarone. And
That's so
Navarone,
cool.
he co-founded the band, and it's them guns. So that's the explanation right there for the title of the
I
band.
love that.
Yep. And it's been Navarone's baby for around 14 or 15 years now. And that's where I'm segueing back to, really working hard and finding, paving your own way. These are young artists that really deserve, they're deserving. I don't want to sound narcissistic or anything. I'm just saying they're deserving of mine or anyone's representation. They deserve the teams that they have because they earned it.
But you don't sound narcissistic. That's beautifully said, and you're right about that.
They earned it.
That's
yeah,
right.
Because they truly deserve to be out there and sharing their talents with the world. Every day, Navarone, is creating something, whether it's music or some entrepreneurial idea, excuse me. I just, he's another one I'm in awe of and inspired by every day. He's overcome addiction.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, that's why our professional relationship was on hold. It just wasn't time last year to, he had another manager, and I helped wean him away from that manager, but then it didn't work out, for us to work together at that time. But I continued to throw ideas or be there, as a lifeline when he needed, had a business inquiry or anything of that nature. And, I offered to be of service to the manager that he did engage with. And, as of this week, I'm proud to say that I'll be handling his representation, and we're developing a team for that.
So beautiful.
His talents certainly will be shared with the world. I'm excited about it. And when I'm excited, this is where I am a little bit narcissistic. Watch out, world.
Watch out, world. I love that.
Yes, and I'm going to refer back to Miss Black.
Okay.
Roberta and I were going to embark on a record company, and it was going to be called React. React Records, it evolved into React Entertainment when I didn't launch the record company. But my React, was actually taken. Back then the trademarks were a bigger concern, and so again, creatively, I don't take no, as an answer, not even from my own representatives. My lawyer said to me, well, you can't. My lawyer at the time said, you can't do that. It's taken. So I said, our acronym's taken. I want that name, so I'll put a bunch of periods after each letter, and I want that
put
name.
Exclamations. Okay, that's what I do. Quotes
Okay.
and exclamations, kiddo.
There you go. Yes, and so that's what I did. Real evolving artists creating today with an exclamation. I'm sorry for my pronunciation today. The company, like I said, was Real Evolving Artists Creating Today, but it was React, which was what I wanted. And what I wanted from that was the world to react, whether it was the most established artist like Ms. Flack, Roberta was and is, or, somebody that is a new discovery. I wanted to be a part of that evolution. So there was the Real Evolving, and I wanted to be around real artists, and there was the artist, and I wanted to be creative and creating. And so there was the Real Evolving Artist creating. And then today, and then the T actually meant today and tomorrow. So, I created that company, and Roberta went with me one day, I recall, to a diner around the corner from the Dakota. And some of you who were friends with her during those years that she lived there probably joined her there as well, or or know what I'm talking about, but she brought me to this diner with sunglasses on and a hat and everything. And then we were sitting there and we were discussing, the prospects of the record company. And I was about 19 years old maybe at the time, or 20. And, she sat there attempting to be anonymous. And all of a sudden, she screamed out, "Roberta Flack would sign with Jason Abrams." She put us into those
so
other persons
cool.
for $5 because Jason Abrams will sell Roberta Flack's effing record.
I love
Slammed
it.
on her wrist, her fists on the table. Here she was trying to be anonymous, and then she started screaming out her name and
That is so great.
whatnot. And I realized that was somebody who saw that I come from out of the box, and I'll do anything that it takes to, to evolve the client or to help them to reach that pinnacle that they deserve, excuse me. Thank you for that moment. Sorry.
No.
I think that was the difficulties with the enunciation, the pronunciation a little while ago. I'm a little bit parched today, and I apologize, you all.
No, stop.
But yeah, so that when she did that was one of those moments that just never went away. And there was multiple examples that have paved the way for who I am that she kind of dictated. One time I was at this hip hop summit at Madison Square Garden, and I was helping to promote a hip hop newspaper. And so there I was dressed in, DKNY and sagging jeans and whatever was the style, for that particular lane. And, as appropriate as I could be and as in tune to, what I was doing there, I wandered over to Carnegie Hall where Roberta was performing with Judy Collins, I believe it was a black tie affair. It was
That's
for
crazy.
benefactors for breast cancer. And the promoter brought me up the elevator, and all of a sudden I was ushered into this green room with all of these folks in tuxedos and suits, and Roberta was still dressed from the performance, and there was Judy Collins, who shines bright and is very classy, and there was little young me, and dressed like a little hip hopper.
That's
And
so cute.
Roberta sensed, that I was uncomfortable, and she said, "Boy, if you ever change, who you are and try to fit, basically the room," I think she was trying to say, whatever that is, and not be yourself, then I don't want to work with you,
Okay. I love that. I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And Bernard Wright later said something very similar to me, because I would be at the performances and I would record them, and I'd have cameras and everything, even though we'd have photographers and we'd have, all of that taken care of from the board or whatever. I wanted our own archives. And so he said to me, "Jason, please don't ever change." He said, "The only way I'm going to continue to work with you is if you don't become, one of those managers that sits behind a desk and smokes a cigar or whatever and just makes phone calls, barking, orders out to people, or, just handling my business from behind a desk. That's not what I want." And I had a representative who was trying to get me to wear English three-piece suits and all of that, and told me, he was trying to develop me for the label that I was going to launch for Roberta. And, traditionally, he may have been onto something, but not with me,
No.
because that's not what my label was going to be all about. That's not why people wanted to work with me. And that's not, what, any of my endeavors were going to be about. I do love to, I love fashion, and if Gucci wants to send me a three-piece English suit, tailored suit, or, somebody that's what's going to, be the look, of the day or whatever. I'm spontaneous, so I could have come on here in any way. So I could say my spontaneous look of the day. You might see that, you know what I mean? But no one's going to tell me that that's who you are, Jason, or that's who you're going to sell to other people. Because I don't expect my clients to be anything but themselves.
That's right.
That's a lesson that Dion often instills in folks when she's interviewed. She's regularly asked, what advice do you have for these up and coming artists, emerging artists? And, she said, just be you, just do you. You can't be anything but authentic to yourself. And so why should I be any other way? If you don't want to work with me, like I said, I choose to work with who I do. And, in a few moments, we'll discuss why it's important for me to keep that stable, small, just close to my chest and be able to be there for whom I represent, because I also have something, very important to me. And that's my mom, and I've been caregiving for her for a couple of years, and I'm kind of lumping her in here too. I guess she's like a client right now because I'm caring for her while I divide the day, for the other clients. And, as I said before, I consider them family. And so, doing things for my mother is like doing what I do for the entertainers, just being there for all,
I took care of, me and my brother were caretakers for my dad until he passed a few years ago, and he ended up with Alzheimer's. So I get it, Jason. And before we talk about that, I want to ask you one question, a fun, silly question.
Yes.
And then I want to talk about what's happening with your mom and what you're doing with the GoFundMe as well, okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. So growing up, I know this might be hard to just say, this one entertainer really wowed me. Okay, like with me, it's Elvis. Everyone knows that, guys. It's Elvis.
Okay.
Did you have one in particular, or did you have a few?
Oh, I had and have many. It was probably supposed to be Elvis because my mother, really, she saw Elvis at one of his last concerts, as a matter of fact, in Springfield, Massachusetts. Okay. And, she still boasts about how she moved, down to the front, and these folks let her sit on the armrest, and he sweated on her and everything. So perhaps,
please let me hug your mom.
Perhaps a little bit of that superstar, the superstar strands, got into her stream, and they,
There you go. There you go.
But, for me, it was meeting Diana Ross.
Okay.
Diana Ross is actually how my professional bio begins, my story, because Diana Ross, to this day, is like a goddess. She's a performer who, almost every one of the so-called divas, finds some way to emulate. Whether it's coming down staircases with boas, or, having the gowns or the hair blowing, or any of the glamour that Diana Ross introduced, in the 1960s. She wasn't alone, of course. There's a lot of trendsetters who, many of them are friends of mine or have passed, but were friends of mine or acquaintances. But Diana Ross, period.
There you go. Amazing.
Diana Ross 101, for superstardom. And I met Diana Ross at 7 years old. So, that was my choice too. I was a huge fan as a child of Michael Jackson. That was the Thriller, and, Billie Jean and Beat It. That was like they say, the pinnacle of his career, and probably just the beginning for him, because he continued to create and, you know, dazzle the world, with his showmanship. But, whatever your opinion may be about that.
Well, my daughter took me to see MJ the
Yeah.
musical recently. We went to New York. It was amazing.
Okay.
And the young
Yeah.
man that portrayed Michael was incredible. So yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with you
so the legacy.
1,000%.
Yeah, so the music, and the showmanship, no matter what you think or,
Amazing.
anything like that,
He was
left
a
its
genius. He was
stamp,
a
it
genius.
left its mark, like Elvis.
Yeah, he was a
And
genius.
yeah, I mean, but anyway, especially as a child, though, you know what I mean? So I met Michael after all this,
Ah,
I mean, I got to tell you something. I told you I grew up in a school, in a neighborhood that was rural and suburban. And, but at recess, during the recess at school, the young kids would walk around. Back then it was the 80s, with the boom boxes, and they would actually bring them to school, and walk around with Thriller and Beat It, and people would just walk around behind them like it was a parade, like they were some gang leader and we were part of some gang. And so I discovered Diana Ross in that way. Not only did my mom have the Supremes records and, Diana Ross, I was introduced to the music of Diana Ross at that time because she had hits, in her own right. But it was that, introduction to the Jacksons and introduction to, that association with Michael that made me curious. And, excuse me. And there's a funny story about that. That's another aside, but my father took us to Los Angeles. I was 7 years old, and I wanted to see all the stars' homes, and I was always this wide-eyed boy, curious boy, and I loved showmanship and superstardom and film, television, music. I think from the time I was born, I just loved music. And so we were, touring around LA, and we went by Diana Ross's home at that time in Beverly Hills, and there was big for sale signs, and I was all disappointed, that we probably wouldn't get a glimpse of her or anything. And then cabs were ushering through Los Angeles with Diana and Ross and Caesar's Palace, and it happened to be the week we were there. And so my dad knew that, he knew that it might not be as much of a problem to take me out of school at that age, extend my vacation, because I was only in like first or second grade. So, and he hadn't been to Las Vegas in many years. So he changed our plans to return to Connecticut and go home to Massachusetts, where I grew up. And he booked us into Las Vegas. And
what a great dad to do that.
I guess, yeah, he deserved my time that I gave him, toward the end. I have no regrets, but
Absolutely.
going backwards, my parents were that supportive, and that excited him. He was a gambler, and he loved, and he grew to really love Atlantic City and Las Vegas and, the islands, and anywhere where there was a casino, you could find us. And Diana Ross was synonymous with those casinos, Caesar's Palace, and so she happened to be there during one of those legendary engagements. And so there we were. And, we talked our way into a table in the front row. But Caesar's Palace, the stage, seemed like it was a football, the size of a stage in a stadium at my age. Diana Ross isn't going to see me, this and that. And sure enough, Diana Ross did see me all the way in the corner at the table in the front. And she had me on stage for what seemed like about a half hour. and she was dancing me around, and
That is adorable.
yes. And I remember saying to her that we just went to her house and it was for sale. And she said, "You want to buy it?" And she whispered in my ear, like, "Only $1 million for you," or something, something cute like that. And, she just instilled something in me. I remember her saying that Josephine Baker had one time grabbed her by the hair during a performance, and she knew, from that moment that show business was instilled in her.
That's so great.
In so many words, to abbreviate that story. But, it happened to me through her. All of a sudden, we left, and she signed and kissed a napkin, a Caesar's Palace napkin, and she gave it to me. And we went back to our hotel, which at that time was off the strip. It was called the Paddle Wheel. My father hadn't been gambling there or anything, and all the hotels were sold out during that vacation period. And so we ended up off the strip, and that later became the Debbie Reynolds Hotel. But this hotel off the strip, Paddle Wheel, there we were. And I would get to know everybody, so I paid attention to everybody, whether it was the maitre d' or the hostess or your waitress, or I just got to know everybody and showed them that autograph. And whenever we'd be in line waiting for a buffet or to go into a restaurant, it seemed like everybody was at that Diana Ross show. They would walk up to my parents. "How does it feel that we paid whatever it was at the time to see Diana Ross and your son?" And we get those faces. And, it just seemed like, I was all of a sudden the star in Las Vegas. And so somebody stole the napkin that she'd signed and kissed. And, it disappeared. And I was heartbroken. But this is what taught me to always value your relationships, and everyone you talk to, you can gain from. Pay attention to your conversation, and you never know who you're speaking to or how they can change your life, or you can be, matter to them. Jamie, I remember the name, was the waitress in the restaurant at the Paddle Wheel. She happened to play tennis with one of the personnel for Miss Ross. And all of a sudden, before I knew it, back then, remember the little red lights on the phones?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, before voicemail and all of that. Gosh, I'm aging myself.
Oh, yeah.
But I was a kid, remember? So there was the little red light going off, and we ignored it, and we went to go downstairs to dinner. We thought it was my grandfather went to pick us up at the airport. And all of a sudden the bellman, because as I told you, I got to know everybody, came walking over to us shaking, and he had a little piece of paper, a little message. And he said, "All these years I've lived in Las Vegas, and I've never even met a star. And the biggest star in Las Vegas just called the hotel for your son." Diana Ross had called the hotel. And,
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so, gosh, if I wasn't going to go into this business, right, that would have been a total waste of a great story, right? But anyway, she did.
Wait.
So
I have to say this, all right?
Yes.
Have you ever somehow gotten back in touch with her and let her know you were the boy with the napkin?
Yes. That's many more stories, but
right, but I'm happy to hear that. Yes.
Yeah, so Miss Ross, we were actually leaving, and I believe she had wanted me to, she used to stay in a home, I think it was Steve Wynn's home outside of the casino proximity, because she would bring her children along with her. And at that time it was just her daughters, Rhonda, Tracy, and Chudney. And I think she wanted me to come and play with the girls, and we couldn't do that. So a couple of weeks later, the mail came, and there was a brown envelope with a photograph in it, an 8x10 glossy of Diana Ross with the mohawk from that particular project. And to Jason, Diana Ross was inscribed.
Amazing.
And, I was just you know, I was so taken aback, and you know, that was like receiving, you know, diamonds or large sums of money, you know, if I were
Amazing.
older. You know, it just was like everything, and a treasure. And it meant so much that, you know, to me, who was one of the biggest superstars of the time, took the time to do that for me. You know, it truly meant a lot. And so my dad surprised us. That was February of that year. And later that year in August, he said, "Guess what? You know, pack your bags. We're going to Atlantic City. We're going to see Diana Ross." And so he brought us to, it was the Golden Nugget, which would later be the Hilton, and Bally's Grand prior to that. And there was Diana Ross on the billboards. And, you know, he arranged for us to sit in the VIP banquettes. And there was little Jason, I think 8 years old at the time, you know, crying and stomping my feet. "She's not going to see me. How is she going to see me over there?" So the maitre d' said, "You really want to move? You're in the, you know, you're in the luxury seats, the VIP. You know, we can squeeze you down front, but we only have 2 seats." I left my father in the dust before she finished the sentence. My mom and I were planted near the stage like this, you know, against those old casino seats with the long tables. And boy, Miss Ross came out and she recognized me right away, you know, and during Upside Down, which was 3 or 4 numbers in, you know, she came right over. And this time I was recording the show, thankfully, and my mom had the camera ready. And Diana Ross brought me on stage and put me on her lap, and she told my mom to take the pictures, and you know, she said the story. You know, my mom said we missed it in Las Vegas and nobody believed him, so she had my mom take the pictures and take extra ones, and she saw I was recording the show. And she said, "Oh, you're gonna make a record?" You know, she was very playful about that, and I still have that recording to this
That's
day.
amazing.
Yes. And toward the end of the show, you know, I asked her to sing a song called Pieces of Ice, and she said, "I don't think we could do that one, Spear. Is there anything else?" And I asked her to do Muscles, probably the 2 songs that she would love to leave out during her, you know, her performance, but she did change the show around, as she said it, rolling her eyes, and did Muscles for me, which Michael had written for her. And then she went backstage and came out from one of her famous changes and handed me, you know, one of the table cards, and she wrote her address and phone number, her office address and her phone number. And you know, that was the beginning. And that was the beginning for me. You know,
That's
actually,
amazing.
even back in Vegas, I was in that hotel. I told you I love fashion. I was sketching gowns with big shoulders and everything, you know, fit for Diana Ross. And, you know, I was just creative that whole trip, you know what I mean?
Amazing.
You know, I think that's what instilled wanting to be a manager, or,
Right.
you know, handling some direction for these entertainers that I do, was those moments, you know, when I was as a child.
Amazing. Jason, that's
And Diana
amazing.
Ross
I
opened
mean,
those
come
doors.
on. And she gave you her information. Amazing.
She did, yeah.
Well,
I didn't abuse that, you know.
no, I'm
A
sure you
few years
didn't.
had passed, and
No.
my dad brought us to see, my dad and my grandfather brought us to see her at a place called Tanglewood in Massachusetts. And it's a very famous outdoor symphonic venue. They have the Boston Symphony, and every year James Taylor.
Right.
And this particular year they had Diana Ross. And we were so far back, you know, but my grandfather was feisty, and he knew I was upset about that. And so he walked me right up, you know, fighting with the ushers and everything along the way. And Miss Ross saw me right there, pointed me out, you know, and
Amazing.
yep, it
Amazing.
just continued, anytime that we saw her. But then, I had other moments that were more, close up than that. I don't like to use the word intimate because it's taken in other directions nowadays. But you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Ah,
Jason,
I'm sorry, I've been all over the place,
listen to me.
y'all.
What an amazing, no. See, that's what I love. What an amazing journey you had. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is awesome.
It's a
And you know
journey.
what? You keep
Yeah.
referencing as if you're old. You're not old, so stop. I'm a lot older than you. You could be my child. Now listen. And it's the truth. All right, so listen.
Yeah.
We have amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. I'm like on cloud nine listening to you. So we have a little bit more time left. I want to talk about what's happening with your mom and the GoFundMe you've set up and what's going on. Let's talk about that now.
Well, thank you. That means the most to me right now and in my life. My mom, has always been there for me, and she's always been probably more active and has had more energy than I could ever have in young years or old years combined. But for the past 20 or so years, she's had some physical setbacks. And, she still was very active and living independently until prior to the pandemic.
Okay.
But my mother and my father were sort of separated. My father was doing his thing, and at the time I'd moved in with them into a condo, and my nephew would spend a lot of time there. We're just a very family oriented bunch, and as independent as I was becoming, I still felt I wanted to be right there with my family. That's how I grew up, and that's how my parents grew up. Yeah. And so, long story short, my father had been struggling with Parkinson's and declining, with what we later found out was dementia, correlated to the Parkinson's. And, he was a type 1 as they say, brittle diabetic. He was becoming very dependent on insulin and protocol. And so my father, was in need of me to be with him for quite a while. And he was living in a senior community under the direction of, folks that I'll refer to shortly in regard to my mother. So I just went there and was there with him. And, every day, he'd have other people there caring for him, and my nephew would drive him around. But there was one thing that remained constant. He wanted me there all the time. And the reason I'm long-winded and that part is significant is because that executive director was well aware that I was there every day. I was never asked to justify it, to sign anything or bring any doctor's notices or anything. So now my father passed toward the end of 2018, or around now, actually. And, my mother was left with a lot of dilemma. She had a lot happen to her in her past, and she'd been dealing with it with a psychologist and making an enormous amount of progress. And then she had some more physical setbacks, and my father passed, and she lost her insurance because his insurance, his Social Security converted over to her. And she was over the threshold of what is called Medicaid. And Medicaid was basically covering all of her medical concerns and her medications and making it possible for her to improve. And by the time I was able to get her on this waiver to get back on the insurance, the pandemic struck. And so with no instructions, my business, my industry was shut down. There was virtual things about to happen, but in the very beginning, there was nothing happening. It was just canceled, canceled, canceled across the board, whether it was a release or a show or a tour or anything. So any of my prospects were put on hold, some of them postponed indefinitely. And I knew what I had to do was to be there for my mother. And so that's what I did. And at another location managed by the same individuals that, allowed it for my father and gave me no instructions, during that time or thereafter, came at our throats. I was actually producing one of the initial virtual benefits. I had over 50 luminaries, from Dionne Warwick to advocates of, different communities. In this particular case, it was for the Ali Forney Center in support of them, and it was for homeless LGBTQ plus youths in New York City. And I thought about just homeless youths in general in New York City and what they were going to do during this pandemic, in this big city and all around the world. But I can't tackle everything, it would be like Don Quixote
I understand.
fighting the windmills. Right. But I did start there, and I got about 50 individuals, like I said, to contribute the videos and participate in this. And it was that particular week when she just the executive director came at our throats very threateningly. And, I've dealt with the divas of all divas, as they say. I've dealt with some serious narcissists, but nothing has ever scared me, and I guess the threat, of your home, your that's part of your life,
right.
A major part of your life. So for my mother's, living situation to be threatened and compromised became a threat for me, and it was also partially because I was here helping my mother. And, not one moment did anyone offer any suggestions or any compromise or solutions. My assumption is that an executive director in that position, not necessarily as your advocate, they are there to enforce rules and laws. But on the same note, this is a senior community and they're there for seniors. And, after she harassed, she sent a very threatening letter without even conferring with us first. I got very scared, for my mother, and I was in the process of producing this major undertaking and trying to do good, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden I was feeling like a villain, like I was villainized. And we had a hearing, we had a very informal conference call with she and her lawyer and my mother and I. And I said to her, referencing her by name, could we please just put this off for a week or so? Not that the courts are closed. There's nothing, that can really be done other than finding solutions. I'm producing, not only do I need to focus on my mother right now, and if we do have to, figure out a solution here, I need to focus on that. And also, I'm trying to help out homeless youths in New York City. I'm producing a virtual benefit at the end of the week, and it's consuming a lot of, the time. I only have enough of me to share with my mother and this endeavor. And she said, I don't care.
Whoa.
From then on, I knew what we were up against. Yes. And so, jumping forward to this spring, my mother was then prescribed a medication, I believe it was called lisinopril, and the prals can give you side effects, which sometimes are irreversible. She got a side effect that was pneumonia-like, and it took over 3 months to, wean it out of her system. And her actual primary care doctor was concerned because she'd taken her off of that particular medication years prior, and was concerned that the doctor didn't refer back far enough, or wasn't, focused enough. And my mother was suffering, and they have these inspections in these communities, and they're not always conducive, how seniors might feel from day to day. You can't just set a day and say, I'm going to come in your house and this is going to be a certain way, especially after 2 years of not having home health aides. And I was a stereotypical guy who didn't know that you clean under a stove or do certain, have certain responsibilities. So my mother, they came in to do these inspections, and, we just weren't ready. I was trying to tend to my mother. My mother can't inhale bleach. She's COPD, borderline COPD. There were a lot of concerns in here, but they were things that, I couldn't help my mother with during that time because of the weather conditions. You can't leave doors open when the highest temperature is 22 degrees during that month. I couldn't have her taken outside, for the same reason. And she was coughing anyway. She was very sick. And from the side effect. So they came at our throats again. They had inspectors coming. They reported me to protective services. I have a hard time. I'm choking up now, not because of, I'm parched, but because of the emotion of all of this. It's really been a nightmare. I can't even convey it enough. I remember telling one of the local politicians the story, and I just broke into tears, and I was so embarrassed. I just started to talk about it, and tears burst out like Niagara Falls. And here I am, this so-called professional, and
But
so
you're
in
still
charge.
human, and you still have emotions, and it's your mom.
Yeah, and that's where I won't be effed with, especially with my mom. And so come at my throat, but don't scare her. My mother already had PTSD, as I shared with you that she had other concerns from her past. And she is clinically depressed and has anxiety, which significantly increased and was triggered by this particular woman who I call Tyrant. And going back, I never knew that this lady would be like that. I mean, for my father, one day somebody helping with us, my father fell. He was helping my father, and my father fell, and she ran out of her office because she literally could see into his windows and across to, the lawn to where he resided, and would see me there every day. And she ran right out the door with a wheelchair for my father. And I would come back I was in Vienna, for example, with Dionne Warwick and Cheyenne Elliott. And I would go to her office, and she'd want to hear all about this and watch the videos and see all of that. I never in a million years thought this was somebody who could so fiercely come at us over something that was harmless. You know what I mean? It was something that could be resolved.
Right.
Laws were made a long time ago. Like I said, there was a global pandemic happening, and, that wasn't factored into rules and laws. And nobody else's kids or grandchildren were here helping their families.
Crazy.
Most of these folks here I was helping them. I would I'd even go and pick things up for them or help them order on Amazon or discover new ways of having things delivered to them. And, I was there for others aside from my mother as safely as we could do that. And I would wipe down my mother's packages. I was always finding Lysol when no one else could. Just I totally focused on my mother and getting her well, just getting her through that time so she could get well. And, to this date, they're trying to evict my mother. We have bringing it to today, we have a trial coming up the first week of December where they're trying to evict her because I was here, and, they mounted up these, I call it buffoonery, these laughable allegations. I've brought shopping carts, here because my mother lives around the corner from a supermarket. And so, if I'm spontaneously buying too much or whatever, I'm not going to Uber around the corner if I had just walked there. So they'd allow me to bring the cart and return it. And during that time, like I said to you, treating my mother like a client, I was creative. So I would take the cart and I would have her roll it around outside. I would use that for therapy for her before I would return it. But I'm a villain, you know what I mean, in their eyes. And so I raised this GoFundMe because my mother's been triggered so badly, with all of these blessings that I'm having. I've also had my setbacks, and, a lot of you watch me through social networking, or I share a lot of these blessings. And these are opportunities that I have through my business. Let me make that clear. I'm not rolling in it like Diddy right now. We've all had our setbacks, and I've spent a lot of, sweat equity, as they would call it, in an investment in caregiving, and also, whatever there was for me, I'd certainly gone through that. And like most of the world, but I need help because I need to get my mother out of where she lives as soon as possible. I want to find her another residence. I want it to be independent so that I can stay with her, or that, if I'm out of town or I need to be in my own residence, I can have somebody be with my mom and not be threatened,
Right.
Because she needs care, or told that she's not independent enough to live where she does. My mother doesn't belong in a nursing home. She just has some physical disabilities right now that some are reversible.
Okay.
And she has a chance for a better lifestyle. I feel significantly better lifestyle if, given the opportunity, but she's afraid to even go to therapy. She won't leave. She's afraid to leave here. And when maintenance trucks go by, anything correlated to, that management company and that executive director, she tries to hide even. She's become agoraphobic. The only thing recently that's brought her light is she discovered a young singer named Chris Ruggiero. And
I love Chris. I'm going to be interviewing Chris soon.
Wonderful. Yeah, he wished me well actually this morning.
Oh, okay.
And it turns out by coincidence, my friend Len is his publicist. And, Len, and I met his manager earlier this year at a memorial for another artist who passed during the pandemic. And so Chris, I reached out to my friend, the publicist, around her 75th birthday. I didn't know what the hell to do. We'd had some blessings and some family members who sort of stepped away, from trying to take any responsibility or helping. I mean, I don't blame, everybody's going through something and whatever, but, family should come together during these times. I don't have any expectations because truly I've had some family and friends that are there for us that I couldn't ask for more. But, there's been some disappointments, and so there's some friction in our family. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, how do I have a party? A party's not appropriate. I'm going to go try to raise funds. And then how do I throw this party, when we're struggling, to find a place for her? And Zooms don't make her very comfortable. People still have to all be available at that time. And then they just look at you, and they're there waiting for you to open presents or do whatever, but everybody's just looking at each other awkwardly in those situations, you know? That works well when you're apart or during a pandemic, but you know, now that we can gather, you know, there's nothing like the personal touch and you know, in-person interaction. On the same note, my mother's always felt that, you know, you have a party, which I've thrown for her in the past, and folks sit around their tables and congregate around each other. And, you know, she's not an attention seeker, but she would like it all to be about her on her birthday. And
Of
so I was like,
course.
I can't throw this party.
Of course.
And so I hit Chris's publicist. I texted him, and Len responded almost immediately, you know, that he would contact Chris, that he thought he would love to do something. And, you know, within a few hours, I believe it was, his manager, Joe, had sent me a video
I
that
love
Chris,
Joe. Yeah,
Chris shot a video for my mom.
that's
And
beautiful.
Dionne Warwick, within that same time frame, you know, she didn't even hesitate. You know, there was a video for her, and a very, very loving and even funny message at the end from her. And so I decided to extend it, you know, and other entertainers contributed. And, you know, it just really meant a lot. I knew it would really mean a lot to her, and if I also brought in some of the family and they made videos and contributed them. And so I arranged to take her to dinner, and she was wondering why I had my laptop. And she said, "Why are you trying to do business when all I was really trying to do was get the videos on deck for her?" So they came, you know, with, you know, some sort of dessert, and it, you know, it had the sparklers and everything, and they were singing happy birthday. And upon completion of that, I turned on the videos, and my mother was just so inspired for so many days, and it lit her. You know, she was lit, as they say. I really felt I'd achieved success in that, you know, making my mother happy when nobody else could during this time, during the worst time of our life. And, you know, but it, again, days later, you know, I actually was a part of an event with Dionne and with Saks Fifth Avenue, and it was for mental health. They raised, I believe, over $1.8 million, and I returned the next morning to share the good news with my mother and bring her some of the, you know, goodies from the event, the gift bag and everything. And all of a sudden, I opened the mail, and there's another threat. You know, the court had sent a request for a Zoom hearing, which was this past week, and didn't, you know, it just seems like they're Jaws, you know what I mean? We got threats around Mother's Day, we got threats around Easter, around Christmas, around my mother's birthday. You know, it felt like Jaws, you know, coming at Roy Scheider in all those movies, you know? So
let me ask you something.
Yes.
This GoFundMe that you have out, which I
Yes.
think is very, very vital. If you can raise enough, you can get your mom a nice place.
Yeah, and it'll supplement what she pays, you
Okay.
know, what she's paying now, so that she'll be able to keep the privileges that she has, including the home health aides and,
Okay.
you know, Meals on Wheels and other privileges that she has while she's, you know, trying to turn it around.
Tell everyone about this. Tell them how they can donate. Tell them about the GoFundMe. Give them the name, how they can reach out to
Yes.
you.
Well, I think the easiest way would be to, you know, I'm not trying to self-promote here, but to log on to any of my platforms.
Right.
On Facebook,
Yes.
is the handle is Jason E. Abrams, Abrams. You know, I'm going to tweet it soon, and also probably produce some sort of video for my YouTube channel, and probably include this segment, which I thank you for being so generous to allow me to expand upon, you know, my
goodness.
personal concerns.
It's vital.
Yeah, it's vital. It certainly is. And anyone who loves their mom and, cares about family, knows that that's the most important thing. It is, at least for me. And, if I've touched you in any way, or if ever in my life, or my mother has, please, I need your help right now. I'm setting aside my pride. I've said that in one of the initial posts. I'm not embarrassed about this.
Nope.
I have a lot of very, blessed prospects coming, but it's not soon enough. And I want my mom to be here, and not, God forbid, not here with us, but also just not in the moment, because she's so triggered, mentally by these threats and harassment that started during a global pandemic, as I said, and are so unnecessary. I just want to find her that, so that we can move on, and I can do a lot of these things and provide you all with great entertainment, from some of the folks you're hearing about. And, I have another young discovery that Samantha Cole and I are working on together, with a partner of ours in California, Anthony Meyer, a 15-year-old dynamo named Carmen Olivia. I'm ready to share all of these folks with you in this world, and, just let music bring you all back up after, such a long time. And there are a lot of crap that's out there also that you have to listen to.
You're
There's
right
good
about
stuff.
that.
Yes. There's great artists out there, that I'm not associated with, and I, today and still from the past, and that's fine, but there's a lot of crap. And so I'm proud of, all of the names that I've dropped, and also some of the ones you'll learn about in the next coming months. But I really need to do this for my mom in order for me to feel whole. I'm very unsettled and very scared. I'm concerned, and, I'm grateful for this opportunity, for sharing it with you all, because I think that's the only way I can connect with you and let you know how urgent and important this is, and especially to us. And also to tell you how much I'll appreciate it, if you could lend a helping hand. The people that lend hands to me, as I was embarking on my career, our family and friends, are like, diamonds in Sierra Leone in my heart, so, the folks that are now supporting in this endeavor, just, it means everything. And it means everything to my mom. Every time there's a contribution, or somebody sends even a well wish, or a prayer, yes, though, all of that counts too. Keep them coming. The prayers have gotten us a long way, through all of this. Look what I'm doing. What I mean? There is I'm evidence that there's light, beyond darkness. However, the dark clouds are definitely looming over my family and I, and we need you. So
I want to say something to you and to everyone listening. Guys, listen. There are times where we think sometimes things are not as important, and you question what you want to donate to, or even if you want to donate. Okay? But things can happen to any one of us. I don't care who you are. I don't care how high you live. I don't care, because these 3 years have proven that. Okay? So I don't care if it's $10. Okay? If that's all you truly could afford, that would be amazing. So all the listeners out there, I don't usually do this, but I'm doing it on this show. I'm personally asking every one of you to please donate to this GoFundMe. Okay? This is so important. I took care of my dad, me and my brother. I mean, we're all going to get to that point. And here's what I want to say. And if this is the Italian guilt coming out in me, then I'm going to use it, okay? We're all going to get there one day, guys. I don't care if you're only 25 right now. I don't care if you're 35 right now. We're all going to get there one day, and we're all going to need someone. We're all going to need help. So I'm a believer that the people that help and give, even if they don't have it, are the ones that are going to be blessed the most. Okay?
Amen.
And that is the truth. That is the truth. You know, my daughter kids around a lot, and she always says that if her mom, meaning me, wins the lottery, she has to be in charge of the money because it'll be gone in a day. And she's right.
Huh?
It will be gone in a day because I would help everybody that needs help. And I'm not
On that
saying
note, Geri Petito contributed to my cause.
Oh, but I'm
Thank
saying,
you, Geri.
you're welcome. But why I'm saying that is this, guys. You don't have to be rich to donate. Okay, just give whatever it is that you can afford. This is urgent. This is vital. This is so important. And again, I'm going to close with this for you guys. We're all going to get there one day, and we're all going to need somebody, whether it's financially or to help us. We're all going to need someone. My father was this big, strong Italian guy from Italy. Never in a million years did he think he would end up with Alzheimer's, bedridden, and 100 pounds. Okay? So, guys, please, please, please put some perspective on this. This guy is coming out here asking for your help. Okay? And what he's doing for everyone in the entertainment world, right? I mean, he's bringing joy to everybody. So can we please just bring a little joy to him and his mom? Please. Okay? Thank you. I want
This is bringing me joy right now as well. I enjoyed this time with you, Geri. And
So
I
did
hope we
I.
can expand. I would love to share more stories with you in the future and kind of finish where I went aside a little bit. There's so much to tell that everything has an aside to it, you know.
Yep.
There's so many volumes within chapters. It's incredible.
amazing.
You know, I'm so blessed to have the life I've had. You know, I want to give my mother the fruits of the blessings that I have. I want her to be here to enjoy it and to experience the highs that are going to come. And,
Yes.
you know, I am a firm believer in, you know, paying it forward. And
Yes.
believe me, you know, my ultimate goal is to continue, you know, once I make my mother safe, to first tackle, you know, the location where she resides, and to be there for those folks who don't have me, who don't have anybody, to be there for them. I'm not saying I can always be there physically, but I definitely can go return the favor to those coming for their throats.
Yes.
As you said, you know, about the Italian in you. My father had a friend who was 100% Italian, and you'll know it from this statement. You know, he was struggling to come to his driveway to speak to us, you know, and visit with us toward the end of his life. And he said, they say, you know, this is supposed to be the golden years, and the only thing golden is my piss.
And he's right.
So I don't want, you know, this to be piss for all of these other seniors and elders. I want this to be golden years, golden glory for them, you know, during this time. I'm going to be one. We're all going to be a senior citizen, and we're all going to be an elder. And some of us are elders to the next generation already. And so you're never too young to be an elder to someone.
That's right.
And to need, you know, a hand up from others. And so I already have pledged to pay it forward. You know, I just need to make my mother safe so that I can do so. I don't mind compromising my own safety.
Right.
I understand, you know, there's risks in tackling town or state or federal officials, you know, but there's abuse going on in the world, abuse in the nursing homes, in the convalescent homes, and in the communities. And, you know, this is like children. It's a community that can't always fend for themselves, you know.
That's right.
And so I don't mind being a voice for those folks, you know, as I do for my mother.
So before we close, Jason,
Yes.
first of all, I want to thank you. I
And
want to
let's bring it
thank
back
you.
up too.
No, but I mean that from
There's
the
a lot
bottom
of
of my heart.
blessings, including this interview.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with me and sharing all this and being vulnerable and making everyone hear what you and your stories are incredible and your journey. And you know, we've got to get this out there about your mom.
Mm,
Before we close,
yes.
I'm going to ask you to tell everyone out there, okay, give them a little two-liner of
Okay.
encouragement, and then we're going to close.
Just be you, as I said earlier. That's what's been instilled in me. Just be you, be the authentic you, and be there for yourself, because you can't be there for others if you can't be there, if you're not strong and you don't have a foundation yourself. So, you know, if you're someone who cares deeply for others and compassionate about doing it for others, be as compassionate about your own health and welfare as well. You know, I struggled with my mother during the pandemic from the anxiety that the world was going through, and then also being harassed and bullied, you know, during a time of trying to do something good. And I certainly suffer the ills of PTSD. I'm no different than anyone else. And, you know, I got through it by being strong and realizing I couldn't be there for my mother. My mother wouldn't have anybody if I fall. So just be you, be the authentic you, and be a strong you. Yeah, be a strong you.
Amazing. I want to thank you for that, sweetheart. Ruben, we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to close with my theme song. We're going to close with my poem. I want to read a poem to you and to everyone out there. And there's a reason why. Everyone out there needs to understand how important they are. And everyone out there needs to understand that they've all been given gifts. Okay? This poem is called Utilizing Gifts and Talents. This is how I want to close this show today. Okay? Yeah. It's being laid on my heart, and I'm going to do that. We're not going to play the theme song. Okay, Ruben? Here we go, guys. Utilizing Gifts and Talents. We are born with talents, we are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used. God's gift to us not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more. Then our job's to share them, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. A living we can make by spreading them around, but not just for the money, to spread a peaceful sound. Don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self-destroy. Put your efforts forth. Do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second-rate. Never hold them back, or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Our gifts were made to share, our talents made to soar. Go through life enlightened, and then you can roar. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, Jason, your name will live forever, forever and a day. Go through life excited for what you sure can give. To yourself and others is our reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but our legacy lives on. Make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. And that's what you're doing for everyone, sweetheart. So I want to thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And thank you.
Love you, kiddo.
Thank you. Thank you from all my heart, my whole heart.
Oh, I love
and
you.
everybody that's published. So check out Geri Petito.
Oh. Mwah. Jason Abrams, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all.